Understood.
Welcome to today's edition of the Men's Room. I am so excited to be talking about this subject with Mick here, and it's going to be the whole subject of identity. And, talking about identity, we're always trying to find out who we are and how we're going to become. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off our show here. And so for those of you that are new to our audience, we want you to know that the Men's Room show was created as a space for men to feel safe expressing their emotions in a vulnerable way. It is a place where men can come to be seen, heard, and acknowledged without feeling judged or afraid to show sides of themselves that are different than society's expectations. We aim to educate, inspire, empower, and advocate. With that being said, please note that we are not licensed clinicians. We express views and opinions based on our individual experiences, and our stories are meant to inspire others and do not replace medical advice or professional guidance. I am Linda Tilson, a men's empowerment advocate from a woman's perspective. And today I'm joined by our special guest, Mick Rutjes, a high performance coach. And he is going to open us today by telling us his story. And in that, we're going to be discussing how men form and shape their identity as they move through the different stages of life. And so what better way than to start by having Mick go ahead and really walk us through what you and I were sharing as our preparation for today about the whole concept of identity, what it's meant to you, what challenges you've faced, what aha moments you've had along the way. So let's get into it.
I love that. Thanks for that little introduction. I love the way that you pronounce my name. I'm Dutch, so I'm sorry for that last name, but
that's okay. Can you tell us what it really should be? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. You were super close. It's Rutjes, which is, I'm not expecting you to get that correct, but I just think it's funny how English people always say it. But no, yeah, thanks for having me. I really love it. A bit about my story then too. I realized when you were saying it, if I'm going to describe how I got to where I am, I'm basically describing that which made my identity because of how I see my past. That's why I'm seeing myself as who I am today. But basically right now I'm a life coach. I'm a high performance coach. And I got into that because, when I was 12, 11, I used to suffer from headaches a lot, but like bad headaches, like not in a fun way. I used to come home from school. My head hurt so much that the only thing that I could do was take a shower, but I couldn't get up the stairs because I had so much pain. And I wanted to get rid of that. And so I saw people, I saw doctors, and eventually all of that didn't help. And then another person referred me to an energetic therapist. And I was 12. I didn't believe in that. I didn't know what it was. I was super skeptical, but I was like, whatever, I want these headaches to go away. So I went to her and I was picturing some kind of witch, but it turned out to be a super lovely lady who was super normal. And she said she was going to balance my chakras and, clear my aura and my energy. And I thought, you do your thing, whatever. And she did. And for a full month, I did not have headaches. And I was so stunned by that. I couldn't understand it because it was something that I didn't know before, but it helped me. So that brought me to the question, what else is out there that I don't know about that can help me? And I went back to her and I read all of her books. And in that way, I got into topics as angels and manifestation and law of attraction and what happens after death, after we die. And that was around age 12, 13. And so I was curious about all of those topics. And then moving myself through high school while believing in angels, which is a funny thing, especially when you also want to be popular and liked by people. So that's an interesting thing when it comes to identity, how I sort of kept that part of myself in the background because I wanted to be liked and thought that if I was fully myself, people wouldn't. And so after high school, I had to choose a study, and I thought psychology came closest to my interests. And it was nice. It's a good study, but it's not for me. So I quit after a year, and I found an online study called Spiritual Life Coaching, And that's what I went to do. And I started to travel the world and coach people, just talking to people. And I'm still doing that. And that's basically how we met. So I love that.
I absolutely love your story and your complete honesty. You know, getting help from someone and not knowing how their modality is going to mesh with yours. You know, when you're in our line of work coaching, that happens a lot. And you spoke about, you know, wanting to, you know, be popular and light, and that, you know, being interested in something that was maybe not mainstream could be an issue, but you realize at the end of the day that it doesn't matter. You don't need that external validation to form really your values.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about what you value, you know, what's meaningful to you, the type of work that you want to do. That's how your identity is partially formed. And so, you know, identity is formed, and it doesn't just like hit a plateau and that's it. Now, there's certain things about our personalities I think are pretty constant, but our identity, I would be very surprised if it didn't change in the way that it does all throughout one's life, right? Because what you experience when you're 12, what you experience when you're 20, 30, 40, all the way up until you breathe your last day, you know, you're going to go through changes because of your external environment, your culture, your upbringing, your education, the relationships you have with other people, your parents, your siblings, all of that, all of this goes into shaping it. And at the end of the day, I think that we know when we're in our identity, when we can recognize and accept without anything else, just who we are, our sense of being and how we show up. If once that magic happens, then you know that you can have some different interests, and you can, and what you value might change to you over time, but you really are in tune with your identity. And you know, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you really, and because I've been thinking about this all week, to be honest, the whole concept of identity and what happens when the identity, you know, changes because something that you match to it falls away. So like, for example, I would make the assumption or observation that men largely identify or put the identity on themselves to what job they do. So it's like, if I am a powerful coach, that's my identity. And, you know, if that's going good, your identity is great with how you see yourself. If it's not, then it goes badly. Would you say that you identify with that belief that what you do and how you show up has everything to do about how you connect with yourself?
That's such an interesting question, because I literally pondered upon this today, because I was going for a walk and I had a conversation with my coach, well, also this week, but the week before this week, he made me aware that basically the reason why I'm still posting on Instagram and doing that stuff is because I almost have 3.5K followers. And it's not because it's my favorite thing to do. I was just doing it because I was like, there's people there who expect me to post. And that brought me to the question, who am I if I wouldn't be coaching? Like, why am I actually doing this? Am I still coaching because I love doing it? Or am I still coaching because there's people who want coaching from me? And then I realized, like, or I'm not sure if I realized it, but I asked myself the question, like, how much is this part of who I'm now showing up in the world? It would be very difficult for me to wake up tomorrow and not be a coach anymore, because of all the reflections out there that are all, you know, going to be judging about that. And it's so scary, but basically I could just wake up tomorrow and decide to be someone completely different. And yeah, I do feel like men today choose something, or choose to be seen as something that is beneficial for them, or at least they try to do that. I feel like many men are even going to the gym and doing things like that becomes part of someone's identity, because if they're seen in that way, as disciplined, as good looking, that's beneficial for, well, their ego, you could say. So yeah, I think it's not just the jobs that you do, but maybe every choice is a choice on who you decide to be at that moment. And I think, yeah, we try and usually base that on other people. instead of choosing from within. I feel like there's a big difference in going to the gym so that other people will like you than going to the gym because you love yourself.
Those are really words of wisdom there. And I appreciate hearing your perspective on this and how you frame it, because when we're coaching individuals, it's all about how they identify, and their sense of self-worth. And, you got to get at the heart of that. And so, sometimes as coaches, I'm going to switch it back because that's what we both are, is that the identity, someone's identity and how they feel about it can really get in the way of any kind of progress, because we both help high performers. So some aspects of coaching high performers, the way that they identify with that skill or gift that they do, that can actually get in their way sometimes for where they need to go, because they're so wrapped up on the outcomes, the expectations. I keep hitting another bar, so each time I hit the bar, I become more successful. I become more well-known. I become better at what I do. And, and if something doesn't line up right, it can be a real hit to the ego, a real hit to the heart, and you can come crashing down. And so, there's no one that's exempt from any of that. And, I know one thing that you're working on in your work is, you said that I believe, or I feel that I'm the sum of the 5 people that I choose to hang around with. And I think that is so true. The people that you choose to hang around with, and maybe not everyone matches exactly in principles, beliefs, and values, but there's things that you value that those people bring to that circle or that relationship. And so, we're learning and growing with those 5 people. And, part of being able to do that is to be secure in your identity, your self-worth, and what you bring to the table. I really believe that that is true. And because I started thinking about it after our discussion, and, the people that we're surrounded with, our parents, our siblings, our coworkers, our friends, they all play into how we see ourselves. And is it okay if I switch to just a little example right here? Because I would like your feedback on it. But I was looking at one time on a certain way of, like, the type of work I wanted to do. And it was really cool that somebody shared a job position with me of the work that I really wanted to do. And it was exciting. And I thought, oh my gosh, this isn't the normal how I show up and what I do, the way that people a lot of times perceive me, but it's the identity I want to assume and I want to go into. And the fact that someone in my circle could identify that, and I thought, well, this is cool. Someone actually sees me in the way that I see myself, and they value that. And I thought, well, this is really cool. And so that's where the strength in having your circle of people that you're surrounded with, they help you learn and grow. And that to me is a value. You should always want to be working on yourself and being that best version of yourself as you go along the way. But we're not going to be perfect at it. We have our blind spots. And so if you hang out with people that are similar, but yet different, you can find out what your blind spots are. And then when they share those with you, you feel like, oh gosh, they're helping me. And at the same time, they see your strengths and then they celebrate with you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I don't want to go into a very spiritual path here, but yeah, I'm a firm believer that everyone that you come into contact with is purely a reflection of yourself. I can only see you the way I see you. I can't see you for who you see yourself as. I can't even try, because it's literally impossible. So I feel like everything that I can see in you is part of myself. Otherwise, I couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't see it. So therefore, you're a perfect reflection of how I see myself, or at least some aspects of it. And I feel like that is some of the most, and that's the reason why I believe that you become the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with, because you're going to pick up things from them that are actually part of yourself, and you're going to bring those to the surface because you want to match who they are, which is basically just another aspect of yourself that you happen to like more over other aspects. So I think that's interesting that you brought that up.
Oh, and I think that it's great that you just gave me your authentic answer to it, not the one that we were expecting anyone to the mainstream answer, or the more straight path. Because I think that when you really, when you're solid in your identity, it doesn't matter how everybody I'm saying perceive you. It's more about how you see yourself. And I think that that's where we all get wrapped up in our human experiences, when we move away from looking at trying to fit in, or trying to stand out, or trying to do this or trying to do that. Notice the word trying here, and instead shift the trying to I am, I believe, I will. Those are more empowering thoughts to have on your identity. And I guess where I wanted to go through this is, I know that you had mentioned that as you're in your youth and moving towards adulthood, that you really were challenged between what you wanted to be doing, and then you were like, well, I would be cool if I do this. Will I be accepted, respected? All these things are going through your mind. Is there a situation or a circumstance where you just woke up one day and just said, I'm done with that external validation piece. I'm doing this. I'm going for it. I don't really care what the other people are thinking. Because we all care about what other people think and how they perceive us. That's not to say we shouldn't care, but we're not so tied up into having to perform as we are showing up in the way that we really are.
Yeah. I think I didn't wake up with, indeed, like you said, that feeling of I don't care, but more of a feeling of I'm ready to face those aspects of myself. At that time, I didn't have this wisdom. I had it in a different way. But yeah, I mean, I used to live in Amsterdam for a while, and that's when I was studying psychology. I used to live with 2 best friends of mine at that time, and we were living the student life. And there was a moment, because I was also very much into self-development. I was reading books. I was getting up at 5:30 or 4:30 sometimes, and I was just figuring out who I wanted to be. And I had a huge interest in spirituality as well. I was trying to teach myself how to read tarot. I was really into those things as well as the mindset and the money side of things. And I remember not sharing any of that with my friends. I used to live with them in the house, and every time I would leave my room, I put on a different mask. I was the social guy. We were drinking, we were having fun, we were partying. We had a bar in our house, so it was very difficult for me not to do that. So I tried to combine both. And there came a time where I had to quit my studies. I had always, there was this question that Bob Proctor asks a lot in his teachings. It's like, if you could do anything at this moment in time and money, doesn't matter, what is it that you would do? And I was studying psychology at that time. I never, ever did I answer, I want to study psychology right here in Amsterdam, to that question. So I knew that something was off, but I couldn't find the actual answer. Or it was there, but I was too afraid to actually pursue it, because I just wanted to travel. And so one day, I woke up knowing that I was going to quit my studies, and that I was going to pursue this other study called spiritual life coaching. Like, who do I think I am? And because I was going to do that study and it was online, the government wouldn't support me with the money that you get when you're studying, which would mean that I couldn't afford to live in my place in Amsterdam, which was for me a very good reason to tell to the guys, like, hey guys, I'm sorry, I got to go out. I'm forced to go out. And I remember saying that to them and talking to them about the study that I was going to do. And how I perceived it is that they didn't understand me. They really reflected back to me that side that was super insecure about it all. And it was difficult for me to make that decision to step into that identity of the guy who is in fact interested in thinks there's consciousness and what happens after death, and who really thinks about that and believes in energy and angels. So that was difficult for me, and I sort of kindly forced myself into having to make that choice, and I did. And later on, I'm realizing that maybe if I had been more open about it, they would have understood and wouldn't have been judgmental. They were just reflecting back to me that part that was judgmental about myself. But yeah, I feel like there I did make a conscious decision to choose my identity, and fuck what they think, as they say in those books.
Wow. I'm thinking about that quote that you shared about, if time or money weren't in the way, what would you be doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the number one thing that you can ask a person to open them up. And that's when the person's real true identity comes out. The energy, passion, the excitement, the curiosity, all of that comes out. And so that's like something I live by. I even ask myself that question every once in a while. And it's funny because the more you try to suppress that thing that you want to do or show up in the world in a certain way, just because it might be a little different or not mainstream, or maybe it's just not what everyone else is doing. It doesn't even have to, not fit that. But the moment you just decide you're gonna, go do it, it's so empowering. It lifts, you're dropping that weight down, off your shoulders. It's no longer there. You can step into what you want to be doing and love every minute of it. And then all of a sudden that, wanting your friends to understand you and be with you, maybe they're not in that place where they're going to understand and be with you. But you have to be honest with yourself, because at the end of the day, it's you that matters, you that drives your life. It's not your parents, it's not your siblings, it's not your friends, it's not any of those people. And the reason why this identity conversation, again, is so important is in the work that we do. It's the number one thing that we have to touch on. We have to touch on our own identity as coaches and what we're bringing, and then help others step into the light of knowing what their identity is and what their purpose is. And it's one thing to say what you think it is. Now, the word think, we say what we think the other person wants to hear, but when we're doing our job right as coaches, the person is going to say what they're going to say. They're not trying to impress us. They're not trying to get the A from the coach. They're saying, this is what I want to be doing, and I so want to get there, and these things are standing in my way, let's say. And so then that's where our job, we jump in and we help them get clarity around what it is that they truly value, want, desire. And they come up with ways of how they can get there, and they figure out how to remove the blocks of what's preventing them from doing that. And, their identity from the moment they come into a session to the moment you have gone through several months with them, they come out in this empowered state that's just so amazing, which is, my identity is let's help everyone shine. Let's give people a voice and empower them to go do. I mean, that's an identity that I've suppressed for a while, actually, because I have, a professional persona, and professional persona crunches numbers. Personal persona, I'm just out there championing for the person, the people. And really, it's the same in both worlds. So I don't compartmentalize them anymore.
Yeah. I love what you said about the, or you mentioned that people would say like, oh, this is what I want to be doing. You said, I would even take away the doing there. This is what I want to be. I feel like
this is who I am.
If you take it even deeper, the question would not be what would you love to do. It's if you were not afraid, it would be who would you want to be if you were not afraid. And much of my identity then became trying to be that guy who was striving towards having that freedom, which was the reason why I started to travel. Because I wanted to experience that freedom and actually be able to be who I always wanted to be and have been suppressing throughout my whole high school and a bit after. I could freely suppress that suddenly because I was traveling and meeting people who had no clue about my past. In Thailand, actually, I was there for about 2 months, and you meet so many people there. And because you meet so many people, you're constantly introducing yourself as someone. And I remember, I think I was 1.5 months in Thailand, and I was shaking someone's hand. I'm like, "Hi, I'm Mick. I'm a coach, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "What am I saying?" Like, you become so conscious of each time you introduce yourself to someone new, and you're like, "Hey, this is me. I'm this old." Blah, 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 blah. The whole normal thing. And I thought, what happens if I don't do that? What happens if I can just make something up? And I know I've been introducing myself as the most crazy stuff ever, and I was like, it doesn't matter, because I could introduce myself as a complete crazy person and people would still like me. And that's when I realized that it's not so much about the labels that I give it, or the words that I say. It's about who I am, and that got me question, like, who's the person behind the mask, uh, which is an interesting question too.
I love that. So out of all the times you've introduced yourself, what's the craziest thing you've said
Oh, I don't know.
just to get a reaction out of the people, because you're testing out this, who am I, and how do people see me, and how are they
Yeah,
going to react?
I think there has been a night where I said I was a magician.
Mm,
So literally everyone wanted me to do a magic trick, but I didn't know a magic trick. So I was just trying to, like, keep the story going, and saying that I was way too expensive and I couldn't do that, and like my manager wouldn't allow it if I did magic for free. A whole bullshit story. But it was super funny to me, and I was like, it literally doesn't matter. But there were people there as well who knew that I was just joking about it. But the new people, they were really thinking I was this super exclusive magician guy from like 18 years old. It was really funny.
that is funny. Yes, humor is really important, in shaping who we are too. And yeah, so from that experience of that, pretending that you were this mysterious magician, to the new people and the people that knew that you were just experimenting, what would you say that was your biggest aha moment out of doing that exercise? Because you did it for a reason. There's a reason why you did that.
Yeah. I guess one of the reasons behind it was to try and see if I would still be liked if I wasn't a coach, if I wasn't writing a book, if I wasn't a student, whatever. Which was basically really, really a journey of self-worth there.
Mhm.
Um, and I think another part of it was like, how far can I go? Like, what can I tell people? Just have fun with it. Um, but what was my biggest aha moment because of that? I'm not sure. I guess that I realized that it literally doesn't matter. Tomorrow I can be someone else, and it wouldn't matter if that's what's truly making me happy, and if that's truly who I'm choosing to be, then that's okay, and everyone will accept that, because how could they not? I think it brought me, or it made me aware of the um, fluidness of, like, the experience of life. Like, I can just decide to be someone else. I'm not tied down by anything. It's not that I can just start a study and quit it. I can just do something and the day after decide not. I can have a certain view on something, and tomorrow I can say something completely different, because essentially I'm allowed to do that. Like, I don't know who I am, so might as well experience everything. And I feel like that's one of the biggest lessons out of that, the flexibility, and being able to be flexible with what you think, what you say, what you do, who you are.
Beautiful. You broke that down really well, as far as being able to say, I can fluidly move through life. I can have different experiences. I can try, on different hats, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, or different roles. And at the end of the day, you get to decide who you are. You be
Mm.
that person, but it's like the other people and the outcomes and all of that doesn't really matter anymore, which is why I asked that question, because
Yeah.
I was seeing, as you were talking, that's what was happening. You're not looking to necessarily be seen as perfect, or all knowledgeable, or all knowing, or having everything together, or any of these things. You're just showing up as who you are in that moment, doing these things with people you want to be surrounded with. And at the end of the day, you know what you want to be doing, and you're okay with that.
Mm.
And you're okay with, things changing, because when we opened up this podcast, I talked about how people identify with a certain part of themselves, whether it's their career or their talent. And if that thing falls away, they can have their world come crashing down. And that can, bring on unhealthy habits and behaviors and things. And so learning how to get, I don't want to say comfortable, but getting comfortable with who you are in your own skin, and knowing what you want, and just having that confidence to just do life. And these are very like basic human skills, but as humans, we struggle a lot, I think, with trying to, again, use that word trying to step into maybe who we're not, or trying to be who other people want us to be. And then we forget to honor ourselves. So identity, to me, an identity means honoring yourself, meaning what you want to have happen or not happen, what you want to pursue. And it doesn't have to be tied to a linear equation. You're going to be, learning and growing every day that you're on this planet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I think that's beautiful, what you said. I love that.
Thank you. And, I'm not sure where I want to take this next. As I'm thinking about all the things that we've shared, and because I really want to give our listeners, if they're like struggling with wanting to step out and who they really are, and not be wearing those masks, and not live in being afraid of how we present ourselves and all of that, what would you say maybe would be your biggest piece of advice, or maybe an action that they could take on that would help them when they experience that time when they are just feeling like they're not really like connected to themselves in the way they'd like to be?
Yeah, I think I love that. I love that you ask this, because I get excited about this topic. A big thing that I've noticed personally, this is my perspective, my view. Once, like I came to the point where I realized, hey, I'm wearing a mask. Then that was my new identity. Then I got rid of the mask, or so I thought, and suddenly that became my new identity, the guy without the mask. I constantly was wearing a mask because behind the mask I knew there was the guy who was interested in spirituality, if I fully conceptualize it. Then I took off the mask, and then I was like, oh, look how much myself I can be. And then that became part of my new mask. There was a mask behind my mask. I was still trying to be liked. I was still, being vulnerable on the internet is a very big example of that too. I see a lot on the internet where people are saying that they're so vulnerable, which is all a part of, again, wanting that reassurance of other people, or it's become part of our identity suddenly. And I don't think that's that vulnerable anymore. Look how much I can be myself, which is a very interesting thing to say. To those people who are struggling with that, finding their identity, or don't know who they want to be or where they want to be, just be with that. That's fine. Like, you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to try and be someone that you're not. Just be with what is, and don't try to change it. If you're sad and confused and completely fucked up, see how that is like. And from that point, when you're okay with that, and when you fully embraced yourself as someone who's got no clue what's coming or what they're doing here on earth, from that point you can ask yourself the question, but hey, is this actually who I want to be? And only from that point you can make an actual conscious decision to not be that, because you first have to fully experience what that's like before you can choose another thing. So I think it has become a too big thing in the self-help community to improve yourself and to change yourself and to love yourself, and that it's sort of not okay anymore if you don't. But I feel like if you don't love yourself, you don't love yourself. Don't start trying to do those affirmations and telling yourself that you do, because there's no point in that.
Yeah, I think I would, would partially agree. I think trying
Mhm.
to force, trying to force being positive or trying to force not feeling things, that's when it becomes an
Exactly.
issue. And yes, you got to sit with that moment where you don't feel all right or okay, and people, we're always trying to move away from sadness and anger and whatnot. You know what? You need to experience your sadness, your anger, your frustration before you're freed up to go on to doing something else. And so I like that you say that, and you're right to say that you're vulnerable, like saying I'm vulnerable, and you don't necessarily need to say it, you just do it. You open
Mhm.
your heart, you open your mind, and you share that piece with other people in the way that you feel safe to doing it. And that's what vulnerability really is. It isn't just saying I'm a vulnerable person.
Yeah.
So I like that distinction you made there, because I even opened about how on the men's room showed that the idea is to be vulnerable, to speak your voice, and I guess that's where my value is, that you be it.
Yeah.
You don't need the label necessarily. I think if we move away from labeling ourselves and others, then we're a lot happier in being, and just because we are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You said you partially agree with it. What's the
Well,
part where
yeah,
you didn't
because
agree?
I think that we should still continue to help ourselves. And you had said that maybe it's okay not to help ourselves. Well,
Hmm.
I think you don't necessarily have to be out there actively pursuing something every step of the way of every day. But I think that it's okay to not always be trying to go to the next level, the next level, the next level, because I think that can be detrimental. Sometimes you're just getting up, doing your thing, and then ending your day, and maybe there's nothing euphoric that maybe happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
No real big uh things that you've achieved. That I would agree with, that we don't
Mm.
always have to be doing something to be that we can have that more normal day in, day out. And I've heard people say, well, that's complacency, just being satisfied with what is, and not really, like, no, you don't always have to be running and doing something. I was speaking to another individual, and they talked about being the human doer, and I thought, oh my goodness, I can relate to that one.
Yeah.
I used to do so many things in so many places because I wanted to keep developing, so I could go to the next level, so I could become known, because I wanted to become the expert. But you know what? I found that by doing less things and showing up with my values, and not putting necessarily a label on myself or what I do, and living my values. If I live my values, and I am working towards how can I best do that, then I'm doing my own form of self-development right there. And it's not about checking the box of the next thing I'm going to do, because I could
Mm.
do that. I could make a whole list, a bucket list of all these things I want to do, that when I do these, that I am successful. No, I'm
Yeah.
successful already. I'm
Yeah.
successful just for being born. I'm here
Yeah.
on having the human experience. So,
Yeah.
so that's how I just slightly disagree.
No,
Not
yeah, I like
completely.
that. I guess what I would want to add to it then is that I'm not saying that accepting that you're sad and just being with that means that you deny any option that comes to you to be happy. I feel like that's when it becomes a problem. I feel like if you're actually sad and there's nothing you can do about it, then only becomes worse if you're going to try to do something about it and try to help yourself. Um, I feel like being sad is fully okay unless the opportunity presents itself to not be sad if you don't want to be sad and you don't take it. Um, that's when I feel like there is a problem.
Okay.
Problem.
Yes.
I like that.
Well, I would say that we certainly had a great conversation here. We got to learn about you, your challenges, your work, um, the gentleman that you are becoming and stepping into powerfully. Um,
Mm.
I guess I would say, how do you see yourself, I guess, transitioning in the next stage of life? What's next for you?
Good question. Right now, today, what I would answer to the question, because that could literally be different tomorrow. But yeah, I'm still going on with my coaching. I'm gonna change a few things when it comes to how people can work with me. I want to be doing it on year based instead of shorter periods, so minimum a year. And I want to be focusing more on live coaching, where I don't know, fly someone out to wherever, whatever country, and we just chill on the beach for 4 days, or I don't know how long. I feel like that can be very transformative. Having a coaching experience like that, where you're with someone for like 3 days and I don't know, play pool or do whatever comes up, meditate, everything. I think that can be very powerful. So those are things that I'm slowly transitioning into. I'm really having a lot of fun doing my podcast as well, which is really nice. So I'm staying focused on that and still coaching, writing the children's stories that I'm still writing and publishing those. I feel like that all of that. Still traveling. Going to be in Singapore in about a month from now, which is really nice. France in the meantime. So that's all exciting.
I love that. You're just really stepping into this next chapter, and all of the things that you have in the works sounds exciting, and providing immersive experiences. That's a greatest way to go through transformation. Yeah, it sounds like you're doing some pivoting in your work and finding that you love podcasting, so you're stepping into that. And so, yeah, I really like who you are becoming. And you know, that's how we came up with our title here is Be It Until You Become It. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're living by the example of the things we talked about today.
Yeah. Well, I like that you're liking my identity. That's nice.
Yes.
No, but it's interesting. How do you feel like having this conversation with me as a man would be different than when I was a woman?
Oh,
Do you think it affected that?
no, not necessarily. I know that there's certain things that that I see showing up as attributes. But it's a lot of times what's present in a man is also present in a woman. So, you know, that's why I speak to, I'm a men's wellness advocate from a woman's perspective, because a lot of times you'll be talking, or a man will be talking, I'll be like, me too. Yes, I experienced that. Or yes, I experienced that, but this is how I might go about it. I might do it a little differently. And so really, it's not necessarily about a view of men versus women. It's like figuring out where there's similarities and being aware of some of the differences and allowing those differences to be and play out. And there's, you know, there's nothing that will fit into a box as attributes of men or women. And, you know, I always encourage people to be in touch with their, and some people don't like this term, but I'm going to use it because I think it's relatable. But, you know, the masculine energy is when you're out doing, building, touching, all those things. And then there's that nurturing side, that feminine side, which is relationships, communication, gathering people together. But, you know, there's times where you can flow back and forth between the two. And so the only thing I would say when I'm coaching men versus coaching women is I'm listening for how that person's energy shows up, whether it's masculine or feminine, because I've worked with women that are high achievers that the masculine energy of go, 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 do, and is there. That's where I tend to hang out. But then I also have this nurturing side where I want to hear about what's going on with the person. You know, how is what they're doing affecting other people? Or how is what, you know, on the flip side of that, how are they being affected by that? And so I'm listening actually more in that mode than I am whether I'm having a man or a woman sit in front of me. I'm listening also to see what kind of word choices they use, because to some people words matter. You say a certain word and it triggers them off into something. I have my own words. I'm very much into language and linguistics, and certain words will if you say one word and it might be accepted by somebody else, but it might make me go to anger right away, for example. And the word I like to use is, I will allow you to whatever. I'm like, no, you're not going to allow me to do anything. I'm going to choose. You're giving me an option, maybe, or some other words. So I will kid about that with people, but yeah, that's really it. Is we're looking for listening to, observing in actions with the other person, and so it doesn't really make a difference at the end of the day, the whether someone's a man or a woman. I don't think. I don't know how you see it, but
no, I would agree. Trying to think of how I see it. I think I definitely agree. It is indeed about that energy. I mean, men are. It's the currently there is a big division, or trying to be a big division, but yeah, in the end, we're all the same. Now, I do feel like women have different attributes to them that are easier for them to tap into, and men have the same, but that doesn't mean that either of them is better. And I feel like that's what the mainstream debate has gotten about a bit. Yeah, but I believe that we're equal. So
yeah. Oh, I love that answer from a man's perspective, that that neither is better, because that's how I've always felt. Neither is better. Yeah, some of the traditional, ways that men and women operate, great. There's others. Do they always fall into that role? No. And so at the end of the day, it's we're all learning how to coexist with each other. We're all dependent on each other, and the more, to me, life is about being aware. If you're aware, then a lot of things are easier. It's when you have blinders on and think you know everything, and you're not opening yourself up for what could be, then that's when life gets hard.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that. I like your perspective. I always do. Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, we could probably talk for a lot of different things today. However, we're going to bring our show to a close, and I want to thank you for coming on and being open to speaking to identity and how you shaped yours, and how others, when they're looking at how they might tap into themselves, what they could do. And I really want to invite our listeners into joining us on the Empowered Men's Room show and support group on Facebook. And if you're watching this broadcast right now, I'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. And then the third thing that I always ask for is, if you know someone, or you are someone that would like to be a guest, then send me an email to youlearnfromlinda@gmail.com, and I will reach out to you to see what that can look like. We are looking for all different types of men to join our show, and I like where we're headed, the direction we are right now. And so with that, that'll conclude this room's Men's Room show. And upcoming, we will have a special guest in the middle of October. So be looking for those announcements, and click on that button to get notified for when we next go live. Thank you.
Love that. Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome. Thank you.